The path begins within. In our search for a better life, we often focus on external things, material wealth, success, and fleeting pleasures. But the ancient Stoics teach us that the true path to fulfillment begins within. It is not the world around us that must be conquered, but the world inside us. In this journey of the mind, we must shed the habits that poison our souls, weigh us down, and cloud our vision of what it means to live virtuously. As Epictetus once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgments about them." These judgments, these habits of thought, are the chains that keep us bound in a state of discontent. If we are to find peace and strength, we must break these chains. We must examine our lives with brutal honesty, facing the uncomfortable truth about the ways in which we sabotage our own happiness. Only then can we rid ourselves of the unhealthy habits that keep us from living fully as the Stoics would. We are not alone on this path. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus have walked it before us. And as we walk, we will find the strength to discard what is harmful, cultivate what is virtuous, and live a life worthy of our potential. Let us begin by looking inward at the habits we must leave behind if we are to achieve true freedom, the freedom that can only be found in mastery of the self. Habit 1. The habit of complaining. Complaining at its core is a rejection of reality. It is the futile act of railing against things beyond our control. When we complain, we are not engaging with the world constructively, but merely expressing our dissatisfaction with it. And in doing so, we give power to external forces, letting them dictate our emotional state. The Stoics remind us, repeatedly, that the only thing within our control is our own mind. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." To complain is to forget this essential truth. It is to waste energy on something that cannot be changed, rather than focusing on what can, our own response to the situation. Instead of complaining, let us cultivate acceptance, not passive resignation, but active engagement with the present moment, just as it is. This is what the Stoics call amor fati, the love of fate. To embrace whatever happens, good or bad, as necessary and instructive. To see each challenge as an opportunity for growth. When we stop complaining and start accepting, we reclaim our power over ourselves. Habit 2. The habit of procrastination. Procrastination is the thief of time, the enemy of action. It is a refusal to engage with the present, a belief that we can defer life until some imagined future moment when we will feel more capable, more ready, more inspired. But as Seneca reminds us, while we wait for life, life passes. Time is the most precious resource we have, and yet we squander it by delaying action. The Stoics teach us that the present moment is all we ever truly have. Tomorrow is not promised, and the past is gone. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the brevity of life, reminding himself that death could come at any time. Far from morbid, this reflection on mortality, memento mori, is a call to live fully, to stop putting off the things that matter. Procrastination is rooted in fear, fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of uncertainty. But these fears are only illusions. The Stoics would have us confront them head-on, reminding us that difficulty comes from our lack of confidence, as Seneca said. We are capable of more than we know, if only we begin. The first step is to stop waiting for the perfect time and to act now, in this moment. Habit 3. The habit of self-pity. To wallow in self-pity is to indulge in a narrative of victimhood. It is to believe that we are powerless in the face of adversity, that life has treated us unfairly and there is nothing we can do about it. But this mindset is a trap, one that robs us of our agency and blinds us to the opportunities for growth that hardship provides. Epictetus, who was born a slave and lived a life of hardship, teaches us that external circumstances do not determine our happiness or our worth. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, he says. Self-pity, then, is a refusal to take responsibility for our own lives. It is a refusal to see that no matter what has happened, we are always in control of how we respond. When we quit the habit of self-pity, we stop seeing ourselves as victims and start seeing ourselves as active participants in our own lives. We embrace the Stoic idea that suffering is an opportunity for growth, that adversity is a test of our character. And when we pass this test, when we rise above our circumstances and meet them with courage and dignity, we become stronger, more resilient, more capable of facing whatever life throws at us. Habit 4. The habit of envy. Envy is a corrosive emotion, one that eats away at our happiness and poisons our relationships with others. It is born of comparison, of measuring our worth against the success or happiness of others. But as the Stoics remind us, such comparisons are meaningless. Each of us walks our own path, and the only measure of success that matters is whether we are living in accordance with our own principles. Seneca writes, "A man is unhappy as long as he believes his unhappiness is due to others." Envy blinds us to the blessings we already have. It makes us focus on what we lack rather than on the abundance that is already ours. And in doing so, it creates a sense of dissatisfaction, even when there is no reason to be unhappy. The Stoics would have us cultivate gratitude in place of envy, to be grateful for what we have, rather than resentful of what we lack. To recognize that true happiness comes not from external success, but from living in accordance with our own values. When we quit the habit of envy, we free ourselves from the need to compare, and in doing so, we find contentment. Habit 5. The habit of worrying about the future. Worry is the mind's attempt to control the uncontrollable. It is an anxious projection into the future, a desperate need to anticipate and prepare for every possible outcome. But as the Stoics remind us, the future is not ours to control. The chief task in life, writes Epictetus, is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. When we worry about the future, we are focusing on things that are beyond our influence. We are wasting energy on what might never come to pass, rather than directing it toward what we can do in the present. The Stoics would have us practice apatheia, not apathy in the sense of indifference, but a calm acceptance of what we cannot change. To be concerned with our own actions, not with the outcomes we cannot predict. By quitting the habit of worrying about the future, we free ourselves to live fully in the present. We take control of what is within our power, our thoughts, our actions, our attitudes, and we let go of the rest. Habit 6. The habit of dwelling on the past. Just as worrying about the future is a waste of energy, so too is dwelling on the past. The past is gone, and no amount of reflection can change it. Yet so many of us remain trapped in memories, regrets, and resentments, replaying old wounds and missed opportunities in our minds. This is a form of self-imposed suffering, one that the Stoics urge us to abandon. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the memory of everything is soon overwhelmed in time. Life is fleeting, and to dwell on the past is to miss the beauty of the present. The Stoics teach us to learn from our mistakes, to accept the things we cannot change, and then to move on, to carry the lessons of the past with us but not to let them weigh us down. When we quit the habit of dwelling on the past, we free ourselves from the burden of regret. We allow ourselves to live in the present, fully engaged with the world around us. And in doing so, we find peace. Habit 7. The habit of seeking external validation. The need for external validation, the approval of others, is a form of slavery. It is a dependence on something outside of ourselves for our sense of worth. But as the Stoics remind us, true freedom comes from within. If you are pained by any external thing, Marcus Aurelius wrote, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. To seek validation from others is to give them control over our emotions, our sense of self. It is to place our happiness in their hands rather than in our own. The Stoics teach us to cultivate autarkeia, self-sufficiency, to find our worth not in the opinions of others, but in our own actions, in our own adherence to virtue. When we quit the habit of seeking external validation, we reclaim our power. We stop worrying about what others think of us, and we focus instead on living in accordance with our own values. In doing so, we find a deeper, more lasting sense of fulfillment. Habit 8. The habit of avoiding discomfort. Discomfort is an inevitable part of life. To avoid it is to avoid growth, to stay within the narrow confines of what is familiar and easy. But the Stoics teach us that discomfort is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. Difficulties strengthen the mind, wrote Seneca, as labor does the body. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, whether through fasting, exposure to the cold, or other forms of hardship, as a way of training their minds to withstand adversity. They knew that by facing discomfort head-on, we build resilience, discipline, and strength. When we avoid discomfort, we deprive ourselves of these opportunities for growth. By quitting the habit of avoiding discomfort, we open ourselves up to new challenges, new experiences, and new possibilities. We become more resilient, more courageous, more capable of facing whatever life throws at us. Habit 9. The habit of destructive emotions: anger, fear, jealousy, resentment. These are the emotions that cloud our judgment, distort our perception of reality, and lead us to act in ways that are harmful to ourselves and others. The Stoics teach us that these destructive emotions are not a necessary part of life, but a choice. As Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." The Stoics practiced ataraxia, a state of imperturbable calm. This is not an absence of emotion, but a mastery over it. They believed that we have the power to control our emotions, to choose how we respond to the events in our lives. When we quit the habit of destructive emotions, we free ourselves from their tyranny. We become the masters of our own minds, capable of responding to life's challenges with wisdom and grace. Conclusion. The path to freedom. The habits we have explored are not just minor flaws in our character. They are the chains that keep us bound, the obstacles that prevent us from living fully and freely. But the Stoics teach us that we have the power to break these chains. We have the power to quit these unhealthy habits, to cultivate virtue, and to live in accordance with our highest potential. The path to freedom is not easy, but it is worth it. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The very obstacles we face are the means by which we grow. So let us face them with courage, with fortitude, and with the wisdom of the Stoics as our guide. Let us quit the habits that no longer serve us and embrace the life that is waiting for us on the other side. For in mastering ourselves, we will find the peace and fulfillment that we seek.